Hello everybody. Welcome to the Bible study. We're going to go ahead and get started, and I'll open us up in a word of prayer, then we'll keep going. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day, Lord. Thank you for this Bible study and this very important topic that we're discussing here today. We just pray that this will be very fruitful for your people, Lord. May they take this and learn from this, God, and please be with me. Help me to be faithful, Lord, as I am communicating this today, Lord. I just thank you for the opportunity that I have here to engage in this study, Lord, now. So, Father, we do ask all of these things in Jesus Christ's name. Amen. All right, so this is the topical Bible study. So when we pick up next time, we'll be in Isaiah chapter 8. But for right now, for the Bible study, again, this is the topical one that we do at the end of the month. And so we are looking at entertainment and Christianity, right? And so, again, there's been a number of studies conducted on how often people watch TV. Some studies say that people can watch anywhere from between 2 to 3 to 6 hours of television per day. So we have a lot of TV. Of course, as a lot of you know, there are a lot of different streaming services out there: Netflix, Amazon Prime, Hulu, Disney Plus, all of these kind of things. Millions and millions and millions of dollars are spent on movies each year, billions of dollars, right? Some of these movies are making billions of dollars. The franchise Star Wars was bought for $4 billion by Disney. So obviously this is something that is very important in our culture, the idea of movies and media and television and all of that kind of thing. And so I already apologize for those watching online. This will be a little bit more difficult to do with kind of our setup here, but I'll certainly do the best that I can with kind of having the movies on here. But for those who are here, we're going to be taking a look at a couple of video clips, just that way you guys can understand. And so because media is so prevalent in our society, it does have an influence on us. That's perhaps one of the biggest lies that people say nowadays as well. Media, or entertainment, really doesn't have any influence on us. It doesn't matter what you do. Well, that's not true. It does have an influence on us. And so what I first want to talk about here, before we really start getting into the scriptures and we start getting into the meat of it here, I want to show how much media does have an influence on us, and that I'm not the only person saying this here. So, for example, this is from the Huffington Post here. I'm going to pull this up here. This just says, "Why on-screen representation actually matters." And so again, this is it says, "We know the stories we watch on screen tend to marginalize people of color and women, but we might not realize how it affects us." So they believe that this certainly does have an effect. And I'm going to go down here to kind of read a part of this. It says, "We're pretty confident that the more TV you watch, the more media you consume, the more likely it is that media, almost like radiation, builds up." Darnell Hunt, director of Ralph J. Butcher Center for the African American Studies at the UCLA, told the Huffington Post, "And the accumulated effect is to make you feel that what you're seeing is somewhat normal." So the more TV you watch, the more media you consume, that has an accumulating effect that what you're seeing is somewhat normal. This is what Darnell Hunt was saying. He, again, is the director for the African American Studies at the UCLA. This is also something that has been shown here from the LGBT group GLAAD. So data shows that homosexuality is hugely overrepresented on the big screen, but GLAAD still says it's not enough. And here's one of the main quotes that I wanted to point out here. "The struggle must extend from the ballot box, the legislative chamber, and the courtroom directly to the hearts and minds of those who still harbor anti-LGBT prejudice," says group's CEO. Now, why are they saying that here? Again, what's important is not so much that they're saying that, but that this is saying this in this article, talking about what? Overrepresentation on the big screen, right? And so the CEO here, the group's CEO, is making this connection that as people see homosexual couples, homosexuality on the big screen, that will have an effect on the hearts and the minds of people in regards to how they feel about people from the LGBT movement. So the CEO of GLAAD also recognizes the effects that media have on us over time. There's also a couple of studies that have been done here. There's a study that I pulled up from talking about different telenovelas. These are like Spanish soap operas and their effect. And so in Salvador, it says there was a promotion for family planning as a solution for marital conflict. This program, named Accompany Me, was on air in 1976, as with the earlier serial that dealt with literacy. The program was designed to create characters who would evolve over time to become positive role models for the audience. Accompany Me showed in dramatic terms over the course of 9-month series the personal benefits of planning one's family by focusing on the issue of family harmony. The results of Accompany Me, as reported by the Mexican government's National Population Council, were: 1. Phone calls to that organization requesting family planning information increased from 0 to an average of 500 a month. Many people calling mentioned that they were encouraged to do so by the television soap opera. Number 2, more than 2,000 women registered as voluntary workers in the national program of family planning. This was the idea suggested in the television soap opera. Number 3, contraceptive sales increased 23% in 1 year compared to a 7% increase the preceding year. More than 560,000 women enrolled in family planning clinics, an increase of 33% compared to a 1% decrease the previous year, right? So they wanted to encourage family planning. They put out this soap opera, Accompany Me, and so again, you can see the results from this, right? So their phone calls went from having 0 to 500 month after month, and of course, a lot of people said they were encouraged to do this by the soap opera. They had a number of women volunteering for this. You had a number of people wanting more and more information about these services. And so again, this is a study showing the effect that this television program had here. There's a couple of other ones that I have mentioned here. I won't go through them all. This one is in Tanzania, and then I got another one in Ethiopia that talks about similar things, talks about how, again, when they would put these programs out suggesting various social ideas or ways of behavior, that as people watched the characters behave in this particular way, the people watching it would then emulate those characters, and they would get the results oftentimes that they were wanting to get. So it is very clear from the studies, from what people in various groups think, that entertainment does have an effect on this. Now, again, I'm not saying with this, right, that if you go watch a movie where someone shoots up, that you're going to want to go, kill a bunch of people. I'm not saying that it has that much of an effect, but we can say certainly that what we watch on TV, what we watch in the media, what we consume in our mind has an effect on us. Now, I do want to point one thing out before I go any further, right? Today, I quoted Jesus when I said that it's not what goes into a person's body that defiles him, but instead it's what comes out of a person's body that shows what? That he is defiled, right? And the point is that Jesus is getting here is that it's our heart that is, again, is really where the root of our sin comes from. That's absolutely true. That verse, though, has been used to justify the idea that, well, it doesn't really matter what you want, right? You're a sinner whether you watch this movie or whether you watch that movie. So it really doesn't matter, because it's not what goes into a person that defiles them, it's what comes out of a person. And you can kind of see how they're drawing that conclusion. However, what Jesus is talking about that is he's talking about the sinful state of a condition, of a sinner, right? He's talking about their condition. Jesus is not making the claim that it does not matter what goes into a person. So let's think about it this way, right? If you eat raw pig meat, you're not a sinner. You're not unclean, right? However, eating raw pig meat, does that have an effect on your body? It absolutely does. Is it the healthiest thing to eat raw pig meat? Not most of the time, right? So whereas we can say that, again, it may not necessarily be sinful per se, although I think there are some things to where it could absolutely be sinful, this does become a question of wisdom. What are we putting in our minds? What are we putting in our brains? What are we consuming? And so with this in mind, I want us to start to think about entertainment the similar way to kind of how we think about food, right? We consume entertainment. We consume it with our eyes, we consume it with our ears, and we consume it with our mind. That's how we consume entertainment. Well, what else do we consume? Well, we consume food as well. And so I've got a variety of different types of food here, and what you can do is you can think about each one of these different foods as entertainment, if you will. It's kind of the illustration that I'm going with here. And so, for example, again, I know this is, canned green beans here, but just imagine that these are green beans, right? I mean, again, I know that canned green beans are not nearly as healthy as, homegrown green beans, but just work with me here, right? I can't get homegrown green beans right now. But we do have foods like this, like a banana, like green beans, that are pretty much healthy, right? These are the pretty healthy foods. You eat these things, they're good for you. They have a really solid effect, right? And there's entertainment that's like this. There's entertainment that is healthy. It's healthy like a banana. It's healthy like the green beans. Again, forgetting the fact that these are canned green beans. We've also got entertainment that is kind of like a TV dinner, right? Now, a TV dinner, it's sort of healthy, right? And it kind of has the appearance of being healthy. Yeah, it's got, the 4 major food groups listed on here, right? But if you've ever looked actually what goes into a TV dinner, these things are really not as healthy as they appear. They've got a lot of things in them that are unhealthy, but they are very tasty. So they're not the most unhealthy thing that you can eat. They are somewhat healthy, again, having some of the different food groups here, but again, they're not, completely healthy. They're not healthy like eating green beans, like eating a lot of that stuff that's more homemade meals. Then you've got things like, this cheeseburger here from McDonald's, right? This is, again, we call this junk food, right? There's some nutritional value in this, right? It's got bread, it's got cheese, dairy, it's got some, presumably meat in it. No, I'm playing. It's got some meat in it. So, again, presumably, again, there is some nutritional value in this, but it's not much, right? I mean, this is where, and again, there's a lot of our entertainment that's like this. I'd say the bulk of our entertainment is probably a lot like this cheeseburger right here, okay? There's some value in it, but not a whole lot. And of course, then we've got entertainment then we've finally got entertainment that's kind of like the Three Musketeers and like a can of, alcohol, right? It's an alcoholic beverage. Within the candy, there's absolutely no nutritional value in this whatsoever. People don't eat this for its nutritional value. Why do they eat it? Because it's sweet, because it's tasty. There's entertainment like this. And then there's entertainment with like the alcoholic beverage where, again, nobody drinks an alcoholic beverage for, to quench their thirst. In fact, again, if you drink alcohol, it makes you more thirsty. They're drinking alcohol for another reason. The other thing that I'd point out about these 3 particularly as well is that what? These are all very, very addictive, right? And when entertainment gets like this, it can be very, very addictive. All of these foods are addictive, and a lot of entertainment can be addictive. So now how do we determine what entertainment is like, right? Whether an entertainment is a banana or whether entertainment is like a cheeseburger. How are we making that determination? What makes an entertainment, a piece of entertainment, again, healthy versus something that is less healthy? To me, what I would say is that how entertainment reflects reality. Aristotle said that what a story is, which is essentially what entertainment is, right? It's a story that's being told to you and using audio-visual methods. It's a story that's being told to you, and is what a story is, according to Aristotle, it is a rhetorical argument. It is a representation of reality that delights. What is entertainment, or what is a story? It is a representation of reality that delights. And so the closer that representation of reality is, and the way in that it delights, the healthier that piece of entertainment will be. So as entertainment strays from reality, as it becomes, as what it's reflecting is less and less true, the more and more unhealthy it's getting. And so we can think about various shows like this. Now again, notice what I'm saying here is that it doesn't always necessarily mean wholesome. Sometimes you can have dark elements in entertainment, right? Because why? Reality does have dark elements a part of it. However, if a piece of entertainment is only dark and doesn't have any bit of hope or light or anything like that in it, well then that's what? That's not an accurate picture of reality. Reality has both light and dark elements in it. If it can have violence, right? Because we do have violence in the real world. However, it can have so much violence, it can glorify the violence, and that's not consistent with reality. It can have love, but again, that love then can be twisted. And so for us, what we need to recognize is, again, this is where, to kind of get towards the end of it here and how we should approach entertainment, we have to have a firm grasp on the truth. What is the truth? How should we view the world? And that will give us eyes to see our entertainment, to see how healthy it is, right? Because when we understand if something is healthy or not healthy, then that'll give us a good determination of how much we should consume it versus how little we should consume it. Because let me ask you this question here. Is this healthy or unhealthy? This is unhealthy, right? Now, but if you're generally eating healthy and you're exercising regularly, is eating this occasionally, is this going to kill you? Is this going to make you unhealthy, occasionally eating this? No, right? But if you don't know that this is unhealthy and you're kind of addicted to this and your diet is regularly nothing but junk food and you don't have other healthy habits, what? You're not living a healthy life, right? That is going to have an effect on your health long term. That is going to affect you as you go down the road. So again, and this is the same way with entertainment. If a lot of what you're consuming is the equivalent of this with your entertainment, and you're not getting other things, then you're not having healthy entertainment, and that will affect your overall health later on. All right, and so again, that's kind of what the idea that we're going with here. But to kind of give us another understanding here of the impact that entertainment has, I want us to watch a clip. This is from the movie Matilda. Anyone ever seen the movie Matilda before? All right, so everyone in here has seen the movie. So this is from the scene where Matilda blows up the TV. But we're going to watch it, and I want you to just, as you're watching this, I want you to be very aware of how you feel, because that's what I'm going to ask you afterwards. I'm going to ask you, how did this make you, again, how did this make you feel? But so we're gonna take a look at it right here. Again, we're just going to watch this clip here, so that way we can be familiar with it here. But again, just think about how are you feeling as you're watching this, and try to get your thoughts together. All right. Now, as you were watching that, how'd you feel? Okay, so you felt angry. What else? Felt sad for him. Happy at the end, right? Anyone feel disgusted when you're watching that? At the program, yeah, it's kind of this disgusted kind of feeling, yeah. Any other feelings anyone had? Angry, sad, disgusted, what else? And relieved, right? Relieved at the end. Yeah. Sorry for her, yeah. Now, everything that you felt, they wanted you to feel. Those feelings that you have, again, normal feelings, they were curated for you. You felt exactly how the filmmakers wanted you to feel. And we're just going to kind of walk through this to kind of show you how they've created this. That way you can get an understanding of, again, how entertainment affects us, right? Because, again, notice what we're seeing here. This, like right here, this almost looks like a window, right, in many ways. In fact, some people, David Lynch, the director, he has described TV and film as a window. And in many ways, this almost looks like what? What we would see in a window, right? We can't touch what's in the window, but what? We can see it and we can hear it. And of course, typically, it's a picture of reality. But that's part of the illusion. Number one, what's one of the first things that you can notice about this? His position over her. Look at how he is over her right now. He is in this very domineering position. But what? Danny DeVito is a short person in real life, right? So you've got this short person standing domineering over a child. What does that say in our brains? Short person who's presented in a very domineering position. What does that think? Just think very basic. Think as basic as possible. And don't be politically correct, because they're not being politically correct. What does it tell you? Exactly. He didn't earn this authority, right? Typically, when someone's in a position over somebody, well, we think that they should deserve it, right? But the fact that he's a short man and he's in this domineering position means what? He's assuming authority he doesn't have. So already this kind of puts us puts us off a little bit. Notice the chair that they're sitting in and how everything's arranged. Look, you've got the TV dinner there. right? How's she lit up? She's lit up by the lamp and by the TV, right? That's lighting her face. So it's kind of, again, it's not natural lighting. She's over here, look, in this very innocent position. She's laid back, right? Whereas he's very uptight. So already what? Well, we want to be laid back, right? We're relaxed. So we're already relating more to Matilda. And of course, again, look at him here. He's upset. And look at his hair, right? This is not a pleasant person. I mean, again, right? And I'm not trying to be mean. They want you to think that this is unpleasant. This, again, and look at the close-up. Notice how you're really close to him right now, right? How do you feel when someone just gets really close to you? Very uncomfortable, right? And, well, yeah, that's how they want you to feel. They're wanting you to feel uncomfortable. So they're pushing the camera right up on him so you'll feel uncomfortable. And, of course, again, right, so then we have what he does, right? We see that he takes the book, right? And, of course, most people know what Moby Dick is, right? That it's the whale, but it shows his ignorance when he just, he hears the last name and he thinks that it's trash. He's destroying a library book here. So we have what? We have the destruction of public property. That has an impact on people, right? Just seeing things being destroyed in general. His overall ignorance. We see her distress of all this. So we start to what? We start to feel for her. Oh, this poor girl, right? We feel really bad for her. And again, notice, let me see if I can find the frame. Look at how his face is, right? Half of it is in the dark. He's pointing in there. It's this very dark, ugly-looking scene, right? This is not very pleasant to look at. And that's the point. It's designed to not be pleasant to look at. And of course, again, he's pointing at her, right? Nobody likes this. Look at how he's grabbed her physically. He's physically holding her head and causing her to watch the TV screen. And of course, again, what are they watching? They're watching this show right here, right? And this isn't pleasant to look at. Now, I don't want to try to hurt anybody's feelings here, but right? This guy isn't exactly a supermodel, is he? And they're covering him in this icky, goo. And he's just collecting money. So what are we seeing here? We're seeing people humiliate themselves for a quick buck, right? Just for making money. So we're seeing a sense of greed. We're seeing humiliation. We're seeing people glorifying humiliation. We're seeing this guy covered in kind of a sticky goo. So all of this is just horribly uncomfortable for our brains. Again, you may not be consciously thinking about these things, but your brain certainly is. Your brain is registering all of this, thinking about these things to create this. And of course, as it's going on, what starts happening? You start getting a lot of these cuts, right? It starts cutting and cutting and cutting. It starts closing in. And of course, in the background, what? There's this music, right? And it's kind of building and building and building. And what's it called when something is building and building and building like that? And it's getting closer and closer and closer. What is that called? Starts with a T. Tension, right? It's building the tension. You feel really tense in this scene, don't you? You feel tense for her. And what do we, when there's a lot of tension, what do we demand when there's a lot of tension? Release. And what do we get? When the TV finally explodes, we get the release. It's all filmed in this way that what? And again, we're relieved when the TV finally explodes, just like she is. She didn't want to be watching the TV. She was horrified. It was very tense for her. And so when the TV blows up, what? She's relieved. And so are we. And so these are, and again, right? You're like, you're just overlooking this. You're overthinking this. No, this is filmmaking. Everything in this was shot this way. What you watch in a movie, what they show you, and what they don't show you, all of it is curated to make you feel a particular way, to make you think a particular way. And of course, what's the other impact on this? How do you feel about TV as you watch this? Yeah, the game show's garbage. Doesn't make you want to watch TV, right? It's kind of like, TV. Nah, let me turn it off and read a book, right? Which again, of course, and here's part of the lie of media, right? We're feeling this way about, watching TV while we're doing what? Watching a movie. Exactly. This is how this is really good filmmaking, right? In this sense, is that it makes us kind of have this sense of cognitive dissonance, right? Whereas on the one hand, we're watching a movie and yet we're feeling bad about watching TV as we're doing it. That's one of the things that film can do. Let me give you another example here of just to kind of show you how much, TV, how everything in TV is set up by the director. Anyone ever seen the movie Spaceballs? It's by Mel Brooks. Well, and it's a Star Wars parody, right? Well, in that movie, what you'll see is that the characters drink out of little paper foam cups. Now, people might think, well, how important is a foam cup, right? How important does it matter? The fact that they're using a foam cup, that was an intentional choice by the director. Mel Brooks chose those cups. You know why? Because people on the set were drinking out of the foam cups. They were leaving them all over the set. They were getting in the shot. So he said, you know what, fine. We're going to have the characters drink from foam cups. So that way, if anybody sees them on the set, they won't think anything of it. Well, that just goes to show you what? How intentional he was being in the filmmaking there. Everything, again, maybe not every deal, but 99% in a good movie is curated. It's designed that way. And a lot of old musicals, even down to the costumes themselves. For example, in the movie, anyone ever seen the musical Annie? Well, okay, so Annie is she's about an orphan, right? And it's a musical. And when one of the parts of the musical, right, you've got all of these orphan girls and they're dressed the same, okay, except for Annie. Annie is wearing a red sweater. And so what is that doing? She stands out, right? Your eye is naturally drawn because why? When you see things that are very similar and then you see something that's different, your eye is drawn to what? It's drawn to the different thing, yeah? Annie is given a red sweater to wear, even though none of the other orphans have red sweaters, so she can have regular orphan garb. But what? Your eye is drawn to her because she's the star. It's all about her. And, of course, it's supposed to show how she's different from all of the other orphans. And this has been done in musicals for a long time. Go and watch some older musicals, and you'll see that the main characters are most of the time dressed in something very different from everybody else. So that way, you're always aware of where the main characters are whenever there's a big dance number. And all of that is to just demonstrate what? That movies are carefully constructed and made, down to how the camera angle is presented, down to the costumes, down to everything that is on set. Has anyone ever heard of the film term Chekhov's gun? So Chekhov's gun, that's a term used in film. And the idea is that if you show a gun on the stage in the first act of a play, by the third act in the play, you better have used that gun. Because why? Why else would you have it on the stage unless somebody was going to pick it up and use it? The idea is that what? Everything on that set has a purpose. Everything in the media has a purpose. They are designed in creating this world for you to feel a particular way. And I say all of that to say what? It's not real, but it's designed to make you think that it's real. So it can present its argument to you. Whatever that argument is, they are creating this fictional world highly detailed, right? Because typically what? The devil's in the details, right? Whenever the more detailed something is, the more true we think it is. So they go to the trouble to manufacture all of these different details to make it real for you. So that way what? You'll more easily absorb it. And you'll more easily what? Absorb how it is that they want you to feel and what they want you to think. And this again comes down to what they will show you and what they will not show you. Now let's take a look at another clip here, and I want you to describe for me how you feel in this clip. This is from a movie that I have not seen, but I did find the clip on YouTube. So.
Good morning, mermaids and pirates. Are you going to let me get to the rest of the announcements?
Of course. Good morning, pirates of Venice and all sectors. We've been told in big ways and in small ways for our whole lives that the achievements of men are much more important than the achievements of women. Oh, forget that. Forget that.
This seems like a women's issue, and I'm going to respectfully just stay out of it.
So, and that, right, the reason why I play that clip there is to show you what? They're very clearly, right, and this is a more modern movie, and this shows you how poorly movies are made nowadays. It's very clear that they're wanting to present an argument to you, isn't it? If you didn't get what the argument was about, then you obviously didn't watch the clip. They literally spell it out to you. Now, again, I understand that we were just watching clips here, but this is what? This is obviously a movie that is what? That is designed to talk about women's issues, right? But not only women's issues, but what? How men are also supposed to be involved and supposed to be helping out with these things, right? But not from a position of masculinity, right? But we've got to what? A more subservient position here. Again, and notice what it says here, right? It starts out with this thing of pirates and mermaids, right? So you've got this distinction, right? You've got pirates, typically men, right? And then mermaids who are what? Typically women, right? They're portrayed as women. Of course, then what? The male there, he is what? He is rebuked by his female co-host, is he not? Oh, well, what does that mean? Well, I'm trying to be inclusive. Oh, so what? Women can't be pirates, right? So again, it's this idea here, right? So again, he's rebuked, he's shot down. So it's portraying men in a particular way. The teacher is also shown to be very weak, right? When the student here is challenging the teacher, right? Notice here how it's again, this is not very well shot, but the teacher here, he's in a very kind of weak position. Notice his stance here, right? He's, non-threatening. He's trying to sort of explain this. And look at her. She's in a very powerful stance, right? She's got her arms crossed. She's standing up to him. And of course, once again, right, what's the message here? That, she's bold and she's brave. She's standing up against authority, right? He's a teacher. He represents the system, and she's standing up against this. And of course, again, right, even here, we see how, the girls are looking at the men, and the men are all kind of squirrely. They're looking away as if they know what the right thing is to do, but, they just don't have the conviction to do it. And then finally, when the bell rings, right, all the girls stand up and walk out. And right when that happens, what? The music starts, right, to show what? How you're supposed to feel. You're supposed to be on their side. And of course, again, so that all of this is showing here that there is an argument that is being made in this movie. They are taking a very clear stance on this argument here. In this case, for this movie, it's sort of somewhat talking about a dress code, but even more so, it's just kind of talking about how we're supposed to feel about women in general. They have a very clear stance. They are very much pushing their stance, and they are making it seem as if what? The universe, okay, the right thing to do, the just, and again, not literally, but if you will, God is on what? Is on their side. They are the people that are actually speaking truth. Their argument is correct, and everyone who disagrees with them is wrong. And of course, what you will not see in this is you won't see a coherent counter-argument. And this is something that's been seen a lot of times, right? Oftentimes, when we see this in a lot of different films, right, people who maybe disagree with a certain narrative, they will oftentimes be presented in a particular way. So, for example, right, in a lot of these movies, what's a common trope for a lot of men if they're against, a woman in the workforce, right? Or if they don't think that that's a good idea? Are they and again, I'm not saying I'm against women in the workforce. I'm trying to demonstrate, though, how it's presented in media. Is it someone who has a rational position, who is able to articulate that position? Is it someone who has a deep conviction on that position? Or is it someone who is just a chauvinist? Is it someone who just really doesn't like women? What's the portrayal? It's typically just the chauvinist, right? It's very much a straw man position. And again, this is not me taking a position on women in the workforce. It's just a demonstration, though, of what? Of how media our entertainment is carefully selecting it. Because obviously the filmmakers, what? They're very much on that side. And so they're crafting it in such a way that what? That you'll be on that side too by the time you watch it. It's kind of like when you see this in various television shows. When somebody has a disagreement with someone and it's on some type of social issue, many times in TV shows, you can perhaps think of some examples, someone will say something, right? Maybe they're talking about abortion. Maybe they're talking about same-sex marriage. Maybe they're talking about economic issues. They'll say something. They'll take a particular stance, but the other person won't have anything to say. They'll be left speechless. And it's not to say as if that other position doesn't exist, because for many of these issues, there's a reason why we keep debating them. So it's not as if the other position doesn't exist. It's just what? They're not allowed to speak. They're not being shown. The other side isn't being shown. So media is not only about what the camera will show you, not only what the directors are showing you, but it's also what they refuse to show you as well. This is one of the other things where this article was talking about why representation matters in media, right? That article from the Huffington Post, they didn't want certain people groups shown in particular ways. Why? Because they didn't want you to feel certain ways about certain people groups, right? So one of the things that they'll talk about is what? That it's good that you show people who are in minorities in high positions, in good positions. Why? So people think favorably about them, right? So you don't want to show people, from a minority, according to this article in the Huffington Post, you don't want to show them as a criminal or as a rapist or as a scumbag or anything like that, because you don't want people to think negatively about them. And think about a lot of modern movies nowadays. When's the last time you've seen, and again, I'm not saying we should or we shouldn't. What I want you to see here is this is how they're creating it. When was the last time you really saw someone in a minority position depicted negatively in recent films? It's very rare. This has been happening for a long time. Even in movies, for example, say Silence of the Lambs, right? You have an individual there. The murderer ultimately is someone who is a transsexual, but what? But the movie goes out of its way to say they're not a real transsexual. This is just a psychopath who thinks that they're a transsexual. Why? Because they don't want to make transsexuals. They don't want to make people think that transsexuals are murderers who want to wear other people's skin, which is what the Silence of the Lambs movie is about. They don't want people to think that, so what do? They say, well, he's not really a transsexual, right? He just thinks that he is. So they can go down that path and kind of, make it seem like he's crazy, but he's not actually like this. So they're not actually showing that group in that way. And of course, again, many people who are trans activists have had an issue with Silence of the Lambs because they're afraid what? People will be concerned that people who are transsexual will what? Will think, oh, they're psychopaths. They want to kill me. They want to wear my skin. And all of this is, again, to show the impact that media has on people. And so I hope that I haven't maybe overstated my case here, but I really just want us to see this. And of course, again, to talk about this is where we have kind of, and this isn't just one movie. A lot of times this perception of reality can come across when we see it over and over again with trends or tropes in movies. Who knows what a trope is? So a trope is basically something where it's been done so often that you can automatically recognize the pattern. So for example, anyone ever heard the expression damsel in distress? What's it mean when I say damsel in distress? Yeah, it's some lady who needs help, right? That's what we would call a trope, right? And so for a long time, that was put in a lot of movies, right? So you'd have the action hero, right? And he's got to what? He's got to save the girl, right? He's got to, save the princess, save the lady, whatever, right? She would be the damsel in distress, So, it kind of goes back to the earliest days, right, where you had the guy with the mustache, and the top hat, and he's tying her to the train tracks, right? And Dudley Do-Right has to come back and save her from the train tracks, yeah? And of course, again, this drove the feminists insane. Why? Because it portrayed women as weak, as needing a man, as unable to save themselves. And so they very much pushed back against that trope because they wanted to show what? Women are just as strong and just as capable of as the men. And so nowadays we've got a new trope. That is the, tough girl, right? So in a lot of these action movies, right, you'll see a girl and she's just as tough as the guys are, right? I mean, again, you can look at Avengers, right? You got Black Widow. She's doing all kinds of amazing things. She's taking on guys twice her size and is able to take them down. One time she even whips her hair at somebody and he knocks the guy back. I mean, it defies physics, but, it works, right? Because they've got to show that. They've got to get rid of that old trope because a stereotype arose from that. Here's another trope. This is from the Aquaman movie here. Just to kind of show you, this is a trope that's come up in a lot of superhero movies about, basically, it's that scene, right? So in a lot of superhero movies or in a lot of other movies, right, you'll have this guy, he's just minding his own business, and then these other guys will come up next to him, right? And they'll, for no reason, just want to start trouble, right? They're just wanting to pick a fight with this guy. And then what ends up happening? Go ahead, tell me what happens. What? He whips them, exactly. See, you know the trope. All right, and so in this movie, they're actually going to, well, you'll see if you haven't seen this before. I'm just going to kind of skip ahead a little bit. All right, here we go. Now, at the risk of explaining the joke, why is that funny? It's so unexpected, right? This is what we call, right, the subversion of expectations, right? Because we've all seen this, if you've watched any kind of movies, you've all seen this scene 1,000 times where these guys come up, they're picking a fight, and then he has to whoop them, right? And this is to show how tough he is. But in this instance here, what? Well, it's these big biker guys, right? Also, again, notice their color, right? We don't want it to play anyone negative, so you got to, again, we got to notice their color here, right? So these big, tough biker guys, and you think they're going to start trouble, but then what do they want? They just want a picture with them, right? And again, he's even holding a pink phone to show that what? They're not a threat at all. These guys, they're just having a good time. And then there's a second subversion in there, right? Where he starts out, he's like, what? Don't touch me, right? He's cooler than them, but then by the end, what does it do? He's laughing, he's joking, he's having a good time with them, right? And of course, that's why it's funny. It's to show you just what? How much we've seen these things. But this is why, when we see this in one movie, or if we see something like that in one movie, well, it doesn't really have much of an effect on us. But if we see it all the time, and we're watching it all the time, then that does begin to have an effect on us, because that begins to be how we perceive reality. That's the point that this person was getting at in the Huffington Post article that I mentioned at the beginning of this. The more you watch TV, the more you watch movies, the more you consume, what you're seeing, you begin to see as normal. This is what the LGBT movement realized, and this is why they push so hard for LGBT inclusion in media. Because they say that the more that you see it, the more that it's out there, what? You get desensitized to it, right? It's normalized to you. Oh, it's just a normal thing. It's normal to see two men together. It's normal to see two women together. That's just there's no problem with that. And so it is on all the time to watch. So that way you are taught, you are conditioned to think that that is a normal way of thinking about things. That's the way that our brains work. Because why? You're given this picture and it looks real, doesn't it? I mean, in many ways, it looks real. Those are real actors, those are real people. They're really touching it. They're really there in that place, or at least you would think that, right? Sometimes that's the illusion. The illusion is that it is real. And so this is where we have to really, again, pay attention to what it is that we're watching. If we understand that what we're seeing, ultimately, it's not real. Everything that you watch, and again, that should come as a, well, duh, but it really has to sink in that it's not real. Anytime you turn on the TV, anytime you turn on a movie, even stuff that is based on, truth, right? Documentaries, whereas those are, more, yes, they are closer to the facts. Guess what? In documentaries, they're picking out what they're going to tell you and what they're not going to tell you. And there are many documentaries that what? That yeah, they have a particular message that they're trying to send. They have a particular viewpoint. Even if they try to be careful, eventually they're going to come down on some certain perspectives. And sometimes documentaries have a very clear perspective that they want to push. So even in documentaries, what they're showing you, what they're not showing you, how they frame the facts, how they frame the narrative matters. And so we have to recognize that, because if we recognize that it's not true, that it's not reality, then it won't have as much of an influence on us. But again, even with that though, what? We need to be careful how we consume it. Especially the further away from reality it gets, the further what we see, when we hear, again, when we see something and it bumps up against our worldview and we say, ooh, that's not true. Yeah, no, that's not right. That's not true. Then we need to be careful. Okay, how much of this do we actually want to consume? And for this, honestly, I think we have to sort of leave this up to our own individual consciences, right? Now, there's another component with entertainment, and that is seeing things that are ultimately wicked and vile. This is the other aspect. So again, I really wanted to focus on this part of this, because this is the thing that a lot of people miss, right? A lot of people will watch stuff that is clean, quote unquote, right? Which means it doesn't have violence, it doesn't have sex, and it doesn't have gore, and it doesn't have a lot of cussing. So that's what clean is considered to be. But it'll have messages in there that are ultimately anti-Christian. It'll have messages in there that are not good for society. For example, there's a movie that's come out recently called Turning Red. This is a cartoon movie about a girl who turns into a panda. And it's essentially a giant, well, it's not very subtle, but it's essentially her turning into a panda is a metaphor for a woman's particular time of the month. Now, again, right, some people have issues with it because it's a kid's movie delving into that subject, but at the end of the movie, this girl is disrespecting her mother. It shows how her mother is just this over-controlling woman, and what? She's just this girl. She just wants to live her life, and so the mother has to back off and trust her kid to make the right decisions in life, and the mother shouldn't want to discipline her. The mother's putting too much pressure on her, and the kid actually, to beat the mother, has to disrespect her mother, has to act disrespectfully to the mother in order to win at the end, because the mother turns into this giant monster at the end of the movie, a giant panda, red panda. What kind of message is that? What's it teaching kids? Disrespect your parents. Your parents don't know what's best for you. Your parents are putting too much pressure on you. Now, can that happen? Can parents put too much pressure on kids? Sure. But is that really the norm? Is that really what we see with kids a lot of the times? Or is it a lot of times kids need the pressure? Again, yes, are there parents who put too much pressure on their kids? Are there some kids who can succeed without their parents putting that pressure on them? Yes. But if you really think about reality, most kids need pressure. Think about your own life. How many times did your parents really have to push you? Usually it's either from kids from broken homes and they want to get out of it, so there's the pressure, or it's just exceptional kids who don't need any type of pressure. I know I needed pressure from my parents. I was not the exception. My parents had to push me to get things done because I didn't have that discipline built in yet. Most kids don't. But it's presenting that as what? Again, if that was a movie by itself, maybe would it be okay? But that's a message that's been presented over and over and over and over and over again to both parents and kids. Parents, you need to back off. Kids, your parents may not know what's best for you. And this has led to what? It's led to a lot of undisciplined kids. It's led to a lot of parents saying, "Oh, I'm just going to what? Trust my kids. I'll trust them to make the right decision." Yep. Yeah, so for those watching online, the point was made up about that classroom movie, about how it was disrespectful, and how, yeah, we're seeing that same level of disrespect. When I was growing up, there were a lot of shows where the kids were yelling at their parents, and we see a lot of that too, where these kids are just, these are teenagers. They should know better, right? This is not like a toddler screaming in the store because they don't know any better, right? These are teenagers yelling at their parents, cussing at their parents. It was a pretty common thing, and it was a very popular thing in a lot of TV shows. Again, we're not as complicated as we think we are. A lot of times it can be as simple as monkey see, monkey do. That doesn't mean that it's always a one-to-one, but when you see it all the time, what? You begin to think that it's normal, especially for teenagers, right? They're in a very important stage in their life. They're in a developmental stage. They're trying to figure out who they are. if this is what the perception of reality is that they're seeing and they buy into it, that's how they're going to act. And so at the end of the day here, right, what do we need to do when it comes to entertainment? Well, again, we need to always be weighing it against truth. This is where we get to the passages of Scripture that I want to bring up today. If my, there we go. All right, so this is from 1 John chapter 4, where it says, "Beloved, do not believe every spirit, but test the spirit to see whether they are from God, or for many false prophets have gone out into the world." And so, the idea with this, right, that John's essentially getting at is what? Is, well, to test the spirits, right? Sometimes people will claim that they're speaking in God's name, but they're not. But the concept here of testing things, testing to see if it's actually true or not, that's a good thing, and that's what we need to do. We need to weigh everything against the truth of Scripture. Is what we're seeing on the television or what we're seeing in the movie theater, is it consistent with God's Word or not? Now, again, if it's not consistent with God's Word, does that mean we have to instantly shut it off and shun it and we can't do it? No, but what? We need to recognize that what we're eating may not be this. Well, it may be this. It may be more unhealthy for us. And so, yes, we may need to be careful with how much of that we want to consume. Or likewise, if we are going to consume this, well, if we're going to consume entertainment that's utterly, that's more junk food, then maybe we need to spend more time in God's Word. Maybe we need to spend more time serving at the church. Maybe we need to spend more time helping out our neighbor, doing something real, so that way it rebalances. Just like if you eat a cheeseburger, yeah, you might want to make sure that you're exercising along with it. Again, this also comes from Colossians chapter 2, verse 8, where it says, "See to it that no one takes you captive by philosophy, empty deceit, according to human tradition, according to the elemental spirits of the world, and not according to Christ." Notice here, see to it that no one takes you captive by philosophy. Every time you're seeing an argument presented in each one of these stories, you're seeing a philosophy at work. It is a particular way of viewing the world, of viewing reality, a worldview. Every single movie has a worldview because the director has a worldview. The writer has a worldview. The actors and actresses have a worldview. And in Hollywood, they have a very similar worldview a lot of the times. They have crafted Hollywood in that way, so that way they do, most of the time, have a similar worldview. It didn't always used to be this way, but it is very much this way now. There have been a number of directors and actors and actresses who can attest to that. There is a very common worldview at play in Hollywood. And even that needs to be careful in our thinking with entertainment. Again, I'm going to say something here. It's not meant to be anything bad, but a lot of entertainment, a lot of directors, a lot of writers, early on, for a long time, have been mostly immigrants. This is not a problem that I have necessarily with immigrants, but the point here is that people who are writing from that perspective have a different perspective from people who grew up in a country. If you're an immigrant, what are you doing? You're traveling, you are leaving your home, your traditions, your customs, going to a foreign place, a foreign people, a foreign culture that is alien to you. And you are an outsider looking in. Everybody else seems to belong, but what? You don't belong, because you don't know the history, you don't know the culture, and you're bringing part of your own culture that is different to this culture. Do we not see that worldview come across in multiple movies? Think about the movie we just watched, Matilda. She's an outsider. All of her family's all about the TV and everything. She doesn't like that. She reads books. I'm sure we can think of another movie about someone who just what? Just doesn't fit in. They just don't fit in. They're different. How about Beauty and the Beast, right? The Disney movie? Belle is an outsider. Everyone in the town gets along. They sing a whole song about it, how she's kind of a weird girl. I mean, again, right, it's very clear. She is an outsider. She wants more than what they've got to offer. She's an outsider. Now, if you are a native of a country and you're watching that, and that's the worldview that you're getting over and over again, could that have an effect on you? Yes, it could make you feel like an outsider in your own country. It can make you feel like what? You don't belong. Well, and in some ways, right, that might be a genuine feeling, but then, it might be something to reflect on. So, he said that right now he doesn't feel like he belongs in the country. And again, that could be a genuine feeling brought up about by the circumstances. But it might be something to reflect upon to see how much of this feeling is because of the genuine circumstances and how much of this might be because what I've also consumed that's had that worldview presented to me that I just don't belong anymore. I'm just, again, the customs here, they're not my customs. They're not my people. It's not my culture. It's not my country. And so, again, that's one of the things that we have to be careful of. Empty deceit. What is that but not movie and television? It's not real. It's all of it is a lie. And again, right, I'm not saying that it's not always malicious. Sometimes it is, but, it's not always malicious lie. But again, it's not real. There's no such thing as an Aquaman, right? There's no one who can, do what he does. There's no one who can blow up TVs with their minds, presumably. I mean, I guess not everything's been declassified yet, but, as far as we know, there's no one who can blow up their, right? Exactly, yeah. And that's the thing. If you think that TV's not having an impact on you, chances are it is. It's having more of an impact on you. All right, and so that's the whole point. Now, again, right, so this is kind of talking about sort of the messaging in TV. And I really want to emphasize that because, again, for large part, Christians have, really talked about some of the other stuff, right? The other element with TV are the things that it's showing here. So these are things like when TV programs want to show a lot of gratuitous sexual activity, when they want to show a lot of violence, when there wants to be a lot of swearing. And this is something that, as well, we need to be very careful of. Yes, this does have an impact on us. I saw a study the other day that showed that students born from around 2000 to 2010, so that's in that time frame, by the time they reach age 18, they will have witnessed 16,000 murders because of watching stuff on TV and movies. Think about that. Witnessing 16,000 murders. They've seen that many people die, get killed. Seeing somebody die, whether real or not, but if you're believing it to be real, even a little bit, that has an impact on you. Guess what's one of the main side effects of witnessing somebody get murdered? Anxiety. Guess what's one of the biggest things that kids suffer from nowadays? Anxiety. Well, maybe it's just a correlation, right? Correlation isn't always causation. So, maybe. But I think that it actually runs a little bit deeper than that. I can tell you at least it's anecdotal evidence, but if I'm around people, at least when I was a lot younger, when I was around people who would swear a lot, yeah, it could have an impact on my language. It was hard not to want to emulate that behavior because why? You're inundated with it. You're surrounded. You're saturated with it, yeah? Same thing when you see a lot of explicit activity out there. And again, that's not even getting into pornography here. So yes, we do need to be careful with what we're seeing. And for this, I think that, I would say trust your conscience. If you're watching this and you feel like you shouldn't be watching this, if you're like, if the pastor was here watching this with me, I'd feel kind of awkward. Yeah, maybe you should turn it off, Again, because this is one of those things to where we can't necessarily say, well, is it sinful or not, right? Because the Bible doesn't speak to every single movie out there. It doesn't talk about specifically movies, but it does say what? Well, we need to be wise in what we watch. We need to be careful with what we consume. Again, we don't need to be taken in by empty deceit. And that, yes, our bodies are what? We're made in the image of God. We're made to glorify God. So asking the question, does it glorify God in watching somebody get hacked up? Not really, right? So again, that's something that we should be very careful of. What are we consuming? Again, what impact does that have on us? Same thing, right? If we're watching films all the time about when, husbands are murdering their wives or wives are murdering their husbands, right? All these different films, most of the Lifetime movies, right, for example. And again, I want to make it very clear, though. A lot of times when it's entertainment, it's not like you watch one movie and then that changes the way you view everything. It's a cumulative effect. It's very much, this is why I use the illustration of food. Eating one hamburger, eating a Snickers bar, that's not going to kill you. That's not going to make you overly healthy. I want you to acknowledge that it's unhealthy. It's unhealthy to eat this stuff. But eating it every once in a while, that's not going to make it unhealthy. But if this is what you're eating, if this is what you're consuming, this is your primary diet, then you are going to be unhealthy. We have a lot of people who are unhealthy psychologically, spiritually, because their entertainment consists of this and this, and very little of this. so that's the other aspect here, is that if we are going to be consuming entertainment, and again, it's hard not to nowadays, then we need to equally be consuming good things, scripture, hymns, psalms, biblical, Christian talking, as well as, good and true things, entertainment that does genuinely reflect reality. Stories that are good, right? They don't necessarily always have to be Christian per se, so I'm not saying you can only watch Christian movies, but they reflect a real worldview. They reflect what is true. They actually demonstrate. Again, I'll give you an example, all right? Now, again, even this movie is not perfect, okay? It has a little bit of a thing in there, but I'd say overall the movie's good. That would be the movie The Secret Garden. I think to me that's a good movie. And it's a movie that deals a lot with grief. And it's a movie that deals with grief in a very real way, especially when it comes to children. It reflects a whole lot that's true about childhood. About, again, at least for me growing up, as someone who was sometimes in places that were not child-friendly, which is how the kids are in that movie, yeah. Again, so that can be a good, again, now they engage in, magic at one point, so that part's not good, right? But overall, and how the movie deals with grief and the very, very real aspects of grief, but it also has hope, says that you can get past grief, that you still have a family and the importance of family, and how love and connections can bring somebody out of grief. That's a good message. That's a true message. And so even though that movie isn't specifically Christian, what? It's reflecting truth. It's reflecting something true about life, about the grief that we go through, or grow through, either way works, right? And how we move past that as well, how we are brought out of that grief through the connections that we make. All right. So does anybody have any questions or any comments? Because we're kind of out of time here today. There's a whole lot more that we could cover with this, but any questions, any comments? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So another pattern, yes, there's another pattern with television shows today that, yes, absolutely shows the men of the house to be weak and to be stupid, right? So Homer Simpson, Peter Griffin, the King of Queens, Everybody Loves Raymond, you can name it, right? Tons and tons of films. And of course, how does that eventually get people to perceive dads? Yeah, not being very important, right? We even have something, the dad bod, right? What's that? Well, typically, what's the dad bod? It's someone who's out of shape, right? They're overweight. That's why they call it, that's the dad bod. Why is that the dad bod? Yeah. All right. So again, there can be that perception. And a lot of times they don't know what's going on, right? Oh, they're there. And of course, again, what's the even more subtle thing, right? Because they're the man of the house, but what? They don't actually know what's going on. They're not actually in control. So that's what? They have this authority, but they don't actually deserve it. They don't deserve to be in charge because they're stupid. What is that saying overall about men, right? As the perception. Men are stupid. Well, you shouldn't listen to men. Now, again, to be fair, we've said similar things about movies, have said similar things about women in the past, as men have been directed, right? Women are stupid. I mean, so this is one of these examples, again, as I talked about in the sermon today, how the way that we respond with sin is with more sin. Well, in the past, we've made women look dumb, so what are we going to do to make up for that? We're going to make men look dumb now. That'll fix it. That's just sinners' way of coming up with solutions. Just leads to more sin. Doesn't make anything better. Any other questions or comments? All right. Well, hopefully this has been helpful for you guys. Again, the biggest thing that I just want to emphasize here is that when you are watching a movie, you are seeing something that everything has been intentionally designed to make you think and feel a particular way. And so try to realize that as you're watching it. Realize that what you're seeing, it's not a picture of reality. It is a picture that someone is presenting to you. It is a reality that they want to show you, but it's not real. And if you watch it, you can start to figure out what is the message that they're actually sending you. Once you realize they're trying to send me a message, then you can pay attention and see what is that message, and you can weigh that against the truthfulness of Scripture to see if ultimately what they're saying is true or if it is false, if what you're watching is healthy or if it's unhealthy, and from there, use wisdom about how much you consume, how much you watch. All right, well, that'll do us for tonight, so I'm going to go ahead and turn off the stream, and that'll be that.